It's true, you are on your Feel Good Breakfast show right here on S3. And we told you this morning we got so much to celebrate with the likes of Custer and beyond. However, as we're still in Women's Month, Zanzi, whether we're in Women's Month or not, actually, gender-based violence is something we should be speaking about every single day. Why? It is something that is the plight of women in this country, whether they are trying to work, whether they are trying to play, whether they are trying to just live. It unfortunately is something that does not allow us as women to be free in this country, which is why we need to talk about it. And it's not an abstract statistic. It's something that is an everyday reality for every single woman, young and old, which is why today we're sitting down with two women that are behind the fight of gender-based violence. And they themselves, for me, are such heroes because they are truly allowing it to truly be spoken about in the most raw form. And today we're getting into that. So please, ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome none other than Cameron Kasambala from Women for Change and Sekela Lisa Mgotshelwa from Amazi to help us understand where are we exactly when it comes to gender-based violence, but also what can we still do. Ladies, welcome to the show. How are you?
Good.
How are you?
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. I'm amazing because I'm sitting here with incredible women that, like I said, are really just at the forefront of this fight of gender-based violence. But ladies, let's talk about just what exactly it means today for survivors in this country. When we talk about what exactly it is their reality, what is that exactly? Cameron, can you please let us know?
I think that the reality of being a woman in South Africa is something that people misunderstand. I think they almost think we exaggerate the experiences that we have, but the reality is being a woman in South Africa is living every day in fear. It means knowing that from the day you were born, that was a mistake because society and the world around you is not made for you. And I think you realize very quickly that this country is raising abusers and protecting rapists, and that you are actually going to be the one who's blamed for everything. And that you should already know that you won't be believed and that you are destined to fail in this space. And I think that that's such a heartbreaking, place to be. But when you see how frequently it happens and you witness it happening to people you love, you really do realize why we're called like the rape capital of the world.
And it really is so scary when you talk about how so much of the burden falls on the survivor to prove that it happened, to say this, to do this. It's so unfortunate, especially in this country, because of our justice system. But Sekela, please talk to me, because obviously Amazi works with women at different stages in their lives. When we talk about the patterns in this country that we see with GBV, what exactly is the pattern that 100% stands out?
So at Amazi, we work with women aged 19 to 35, which is the youth age in the country. And we've seen patterns that are rooted in power, control, and silencing. So what we've discovered is that the country has a serious issue of youth unemployment. And that then just feeds into a space of mental health issues, and it becomes breeding ground for abuse. So there's a hopelessness. So with the women that we work with, what we've realized is that the biggest pattern is economic dependence. Where on earth am I going to go if I'm in an abusive space and I don't have money? And we saw a surge of domestic abuse in our organization. It was around COVID. There was a huge surge of domestic abuse. There's also invisible abuse, and this is abuse that now also affects higher cycles of people where they stay because I need to keep it together for my family. They stay because, we've got a reputation out there, so I can't disclose. And the hopelessness just comes from no one will believe me. Even if I tell someone, no one will believe me. And this comes from our own families.
Sure, and that is the scariest part, the fact that it comes from the people closest to you. But now we are also talking about, just what gaps our survivors face. Because like we said, so much, the burden of proof falls on them and so much more. But what exactly is it that they don't have support in that you find in terms of them reporting?
I think that South Africa has some of the best legislation in the world. We have the Domestic Violence Act, the Criminal Sex Offences Act, the Protection from Harassment Act. And you would think with this kind of, legislation that it is designed to protect women and girls in the, LGBTQIA plus community. But I'm going to walk you through the process as if you were a victim yourself or a survivor. So this happens to you, you're raped or you're abused. So you go to the police station and immediately they dismiss your case because this is a family matter, or this is not something we believe, or is that actually true? What did you do and what was your part in it? But let's say they do take it and they say, fine, we'll do your case.
then they mishandle the case. They don't take it to the justice system. They don't forward it. Or they don't guide you on the next processes. For example, needing medical support. You might need a rape kit done. You might need photos and bruises being checked. And if that does happen, well, then you're going to be messed up by the medical field because they're going to forget to do DNA because it's such a backlog. Or they're going to do the rape kit inappropriately. But it's done properly now, fine. Police, medicine, great, to the courts. That, I think, is the final boss. It is the last moment where you realize that this system and all this legislation is irrelevant. Because when you walk into that room, you are a villain. You will get asked the questions, how big was it? What were you wearing? You know, what did you do to make them angry? That's what you will receive. And that person, you will be sitting right next to them while this is happening.
Cameron, the picture you just painted, I think becomes even more painful when you realize that it's the reality of so many women in this country. But ladies, I'm so glad you're not going anywhere because we still have so much to talk about. Mzansi, gender-based violence is something that our president even referred to as a possible pandemic, something that is truly a problem. And this is why we will continue to talk about it until something actually happens in terms of it being eradicated. But what exactly can be done? That's what we're going to be getting into a little bit later on. For now, though, my amazing gents there in Cape Town, what is happening on your side?
It's my feel-good breakfast show.
Welcome back. You're still on Expresso on S3, and you already know that we're always all about having great conversations. But I think it's one of the most important conversations that we're having today because it's all about how we can protect women in this country. We know that gender-based violence has been something that has been increasing over the last couple of years. Unexpectedly so, and I want to say that because you would hope that things would get better, but they aren't, which is why we need to continue to have conversations like this. And this is why we've got our beautiful guests today that are helping us just to understand how things can get better, Cameron as well as Sekela. Ladies, let's jump right back into it. Thank you so much, I think, just for making sure that you answer with so much care, because I think that there's some people who genuinely don't understand where we actually are in terms of gender-based violence. So this is why then I want to ask you, Cameron, what's one myth about gender-based violence that you believe is really just taking us back? It's not allowing us to progress.
So this is a family matter or that this is a private issue. I think that, and I mentioned it earlier, it says it takes, a community to raise a child.
Yes.
But when the community is raising these abusers and these menaces to society, we are teaching the rest of the family and the society that, when it comes to these issues, this is an issue we don't talk about. This is something that we need to handle privately. This is something that is taboo. We don't even get to say the word rape and sexual assault sometimes in certain rooms.
Yeah.
So we are teaching people that this is actually something we don't talk about.
Yes.
And I think that kind of narrative is very disempowering for these victims and survivors because if everyone's telling you that this is something you shouldn't talk about, then why would you talk about it? It's not something you would even address. So I think that's a big myth that this is something that needs to be dealt with privately.
And this is why we say we need to keep having these conversations, right?
Exactly.
Right? Yeah. But Sekela, talk to me then just for, the women that unfortunately and sadly feel isolated right now, the ones who don't know what to do. You even described it earlier on where you said, so many of them are forced by circumstance to stay in certain situations. What is the best way that they'd be able to find safety or even find a place that they can possibly, go to?
The most important thing to the women is to understand that they truly are not alone. Our biggest failure as a country is that we lack accountability.
Sure.
So it's very important to understand that when someone has gone through a violation like this, it does not always help to say, speak out, leave. There is a systemic issue of who is going to take care of my needs when I leave. So the most important thing is to find organizations like Women for Change who have so boldly come out to say, these are the resources that we have, they're not enough, but we can do A, B, and C. So there are practical things that they're able to do to support someone that's going through this. I just have a personal anxiety of saying survivors because women are experiencing GBV as we speak.
Yeah.
So no one is surviving and the country is living in a bubble as if this will go away. It will not go away. Don't ask her to leave when there is no structure set up to give her actual support that's going to change her life. Otherwise, it's a cycle. She will leave only to go back because people need to eat.
Yeah. That is such a realistic answer. And sadly, like we said, that's the reality of so many women, right? But now let's go to the cause. Let's go to what it is actually that is allowing men to possibly no longer partake in gender-based violence. For those that do, you know, beyond hashtags and beyond us having the conversations, what is actually the approach to us being able to say to them that's getting men to take responsibility rather even?
Okay, so I think that for us, we've never excluded men from the conversation. We've never pushed them out of it. So even when we did our demonstration on April 11th and we had this petition handover, there were men involved. There were men in the crowd. There were men supporting the movement. There were men signing the petition. And I think that for us, men are vital to this movement because men listen to other men.
That's
you know, they
true.
respect one another and they will engage with one another. So when men are calling out each other and they're saying, you know, why are you doing that? What are you thinking? Like, I don't support this. All of a sudden, the conversation shifts a bit.
Yeah.
Now it's, okay, well, if this other man thinks I'm doing something wrong, maybe I need to challenge myself and wonder what is going on. And then there becomes that almost knock-on effect where, okay, now that I've challenged you, you're going to challenge the next person and the next person. And I think if we exclude men from this conversation, we end up in a situation where they think that this is a woman's issue, you know, and they misunderstand the intention behind these movements and why we're doing it. So I think men have to be part of this conversation if we want to see them change without always making them the villains in these conversations as well.
100%. And ladies, can I also just ask, just in terms of, let's say I'm someone who knows someone who's going through, you know, something like this. You would then say, okay, go to a Woman for Change or go to an organization that's really part of that, which is incredible. And I'm so glad we have organizations like you guys. Thank you so much for the great work that you do. And just to end off, you know, particularly I think in just workspaces, you know, or what is the best way that women are able to possibly, I don't know, you know, really come out and be able to even have their companies build better pathways for them to be able to report within companies?
So at Amaze, we've always been women-focused. We do create spaces that prioritize safety, dignity, and choice. We provide learning pathways for women so that they can take part and earn in the economy.
Yeah.
And it's through that economic change that they're able then to walk away and change their lives.
Yeah.
So what we also do is, at the moment, we're driving our Safety is Power campaign where we start with what we have. We have a Amaze Beauty product. We're selling that product and we're saying 10 Rand of that is going to support GBV through the Women for Change platform.
Yeah.
So if you are an employer, sometimes you won't be able to sit and sift through who's a survivor, who's not, but you can collaborate with people that are already doing it, the Amazis, the Women for Change, and many other organizations to then say, with what we have, let's contribute so that we sort of limit the scourge of this pandemic. It is a pandemic.
It is a pandemic.
I'd love to add on
100%.
to what you're saying, if that's okay.
Yes, very quickly. Go ahead.
I think you've highlighted also something very important, is that this is a very lonely journey in terms of organizations. There's no funding that we get. There's no handouts that we get. And I think we're on the ground doing the work. You know, we're training these women on how to empower themselves. We're protecting these women, sending them to the right kind of people with the money from our own account, you know. And I think a lot of women will agree when they say that we're doing the work the government should have been doing.
Sure.
You know, we're doing the things that they should be doing. And if they did their jobs, if they implemented this national strategic plan, the change that we would see and the way we could better support these women in whatever sectors and spaces they are would be phenomenal.
Incredible. And by that, I mean the work that you guys are doing. There's still so much more work for our government to do. But ladies, thank you so much. We appreciate you guys. And thank you for being heroes in your own rights and what you're doing.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mzansi, the conversation is being had. Do not be left out of it. It is something that is truly the plight of women in this country, where nobody feels safe. It is a terrible thing, and that is why we need to continue to have the conversations, but also why our government also needs to do the work.